Okay, we're going to talk about external referencing. We're going to run into situations where we want to bring in multiple drawings together without using the insert block command. When you bring in or you combine drawings together using insert block, you're making the drawings larger by compounding the amount of geometry it makes up that drawing. The external referencing commands allow you to bring in, like it's a block, other drawings, other file formats as well. We're going to go through examples, but allows you to bring them in so that you can see them and use them as a reference. We can later decide to combine or bind them to our drawing if we want, so that it's as if we use the insert block command. Or we may choose to detach, which means it will remove the inserted reference as if it had never been there, totally severing the connection between the two files. What I have on my screen here is a floor plan, and for the sake of this discussion, let's say in a different office in the same building, we have somebody working on the electrical components here. So that person is going to continue working on the electrical, but we want to see what that electrical looks like so far in our floor plan. What we could do is we can take that person's copy of the electrical and reference it into this drawing. Now the benefits to doing this is that that person can continue working on the electrical, and we can simply reload any changes into our current drawing if we wish or if we need to. So let's take a look at how that works. So if we look at the insert ribbon, we have a whole panel for referencing. So what we're going to want to do initially is attach. Now what's really neat about the attach feature is that it's not just drawing files that we can attach. We can bring in all kinds of different file formats, anywhere from DWF files to MicroStation files to PDFs, point clouds, Navisworks files, and so on. Now each of these have different options to link to them. So we'll try a few different ones. We'll do a PDF, we'll do an image. And see what happens there. So what I want to do is I want to select electrical and click open. Remember, somebody else is working on that file right now. So if we take a look at the options here, they're very much the same as the insert dialog box with two exceptions. Number one is here, which is reference type, attachment versus overlay. We'll go through examples of each of these a little later. Path type, relative, no path, or full path. This is identifying, okay, when you open your plan and it then loads in the electrical, because once it's attached, AutoCAD remembers that it's attached. How's it going to know where to find that particular linked file? So it stores within the drawing the directories and subdirectories that the attached file is stored in. Relative path basically means it's going to use whatever the current file folder is as a reference as to where to find the attached reference file. It's really good to use when you're dealing with different volumes with different drive letters, C drive, D drive, E drive, and so on. So I'm going to pick relative for that. Click OK. Now I didn't identify that I wanted to use my mouse to pick where I wanted this to appear. I just left it unchecked because the electrical is already tied into the floor plan as far as position is concerned. So you can see that we've got electrical, which is blue. You can see that when I select one part of it, all of the electrical is selected, just like in a block. If you take a look when I selected the the external reference in the ribbon. We've got edit in place. We have basically external reference specific options. Now, there's a palette that goes along with external referencing. If we go to our reference panel and click on the little arrow here, this is our palette. And it's good for keeping track of how many different things are externally referenced. So you can see here, this is our current drawing. Here is the external reference that I just brought in. It tells me it's loaded and that it is currently an attachment. If you remember in the dialog box, I showed you attachment and underlay. Having selected it down here, you'll see it tells us what it is, status of it, the saved path. If you need a preview, you can click on that little button right there. Doesn't look like much because all it is electrical information. Now, in the palette, if we select an external reference and right-click on it, here's a few of the options to choose from. Open, attach. Open lets you open the attached file in its own separate drawing session. Attach takes you to the attach dialog box, so you can attach another external reference. Unload, if you click on unload, the information is no longer displayed, but you can see that it's still a part of the dialog box. Sorry, the palette. Reload brings it back. Reload also can be used to update the information, meaning the other person in the office is working on the electrical. She may have made some significant changes and you want to now see what those changes look like in reference to the current drawing. So if you reload, what it'll do is it'll take the most current version of that file and update this file to show that information. Detach is to totally disconnect the electrical file from this file. So say I'm done with it, I don't need to see that information anymore, then I can just detach it. Now if I want to bring that information back, I have to go through the attach dialog box again. Bind will convert the externally referenced electrical drawing into a block. Once it's a block, it stays in our drawing, but the fact that it was referenced to another drawing file is broken. So once it's bound, you can explode it. You can then modify all the parts that you want to modify. You can change whether an external reference is an attachment or an overlay. Again, we're going to come to that later. Path type, you can change the path type, select new path, and find and replace. All these features, with the exception of find and replace, are basically the same options you saw when we attached the external reference in the first place. So let's attach another one. HVAC. Same idea. Now the HVAC is these green colored objects. There's a furnace, I think, and there's the hot air vents in the floor. All right, so now you can see the two of them are listed as attachments. So let's look at the attach command again. Let's try something different. Let's attach an image file. I already have in this folder the Ascent logo GIF file. If I select it and click open, you see in this dialog box we have different options. Not so much different, but not as many options. We have our path type, scale, and so on. If I click OK, it's kind of small, so just click there. And now I've got that placed. This would be ideal for logos and title blocks and so on. When you select an image that's been externally referenced, you'll see we have different options up in our ribbon, such as brightness, contrast, fade. So brightness, Now it's way too bright. You can't even see the information that makes up the logo. Fade. So all these different options you could choose from. You could choose to not show the image, but the image is still there. You can see the boundary of it, or background, transparency, and clipping. Let's say I only wanted the ascent part of it, but not the logo. If I create a clipping boundary, what I can do is I can create a rectangular shape around the part I want to see. So the external reference is fully there still, you just can't see it all. And if I remove the clipping, then it goes away. Let's look at attaching a PDF. So you may have a client who has marked up a PDF of the floor plan. So if I click change the file type to PDF, again, very limited options to choose from, nothing special other than the fact that if this is a multi-page PDF, we'd have to pick and choose which page we want to bring in. There's only one page, so that makes life easier for us. Now, as far as scaling is concerned, the file actually came in way down here at the drawing origin, so you're probably going to want to, oops. So I'm going to use the scale command. So we can see it. So here are our markups. So the client could say, I want to remove this wall here. I would argue with the client. That is the furnace room, closet after all. And remove door. So we could then go and remove the door as per the client's request. So I'm going to get rid of that PDF. Right click on it in the palette, detach. Might as well do that with the logo as well. Another thing I want to show you is about layers. If we take a look at our layer list, you'll see that we have our standard layers for this particular drawing, but we also have two layers above at the top of the list, Addition A Electrical and then Addition A HVAC. Those are layers that are now in our current drawing only because the fact that we have externally referenced drawings in. They're grayed out, which means you cannot make them current. You cannot add information to an externally referenced file unless you're specifically editing it. So they are grayed out. Now, if I were to choose to bind an external reference, so if I say, okay, electrical, right click, I want to bind. Remember what that does. It converts the external reference from being a reference to an actual block. So it wants us to know what kind of a bind do we want to do, a bind or an insert. I'm going to pick bind because I want to show you what the effect is on layers. Any layer that's added to a drawing because of the fact that it was bound external reference is preceded with the name of the original file, $0, and then the actual name of the layer. Now, if I had chosen to bind using insert, what happens is the layer that came in as because of the external reference is not given the prefix of the original file name. So whatever the name of the layer is in the external reference is the name of the layer here. That's the difference between those two. You may also notice that the blue is darker or more brilliant, and same with the green that makes up the HVAC information. Let me do a bit of undoing here. I want to bring back the two external references. And now I hope you notice that the blue of the electrical and the green of the HVAC is fainter or faded. And that is because in the insert dialog box, when you expand the external reference panel, we have a fading feature. So we can control the appearance of the external reference information. So you can see as I drag my mouse to the right, it becomes fainter or more brilliant. It's just a really good way of being able to visually tell whether something is a part of the drawing because it's was drawn in the drawing or whether it's an external reference. I'm just going to set that back to 50, which is very painstaking. That's good enough. Okay, so let's take a look at the electrical. If I wanted to make a change to the electrical external reference, I could right-click, actually no, sorry, if I select it. So open reference I already showed you. It opens up the drawing as its own drawing session. So let's do that. So let's say I delete this. When I go to close this, so this is the actual electrical drawing. If I answer yes, what will happen is quite often I'll get a message down in the bottom right. It's kind of sporadic, but what it will do is it will warn me that there's been a change to the attached drawing file. Remember, this is what I removed, the switch, this light. But if I go up to here in the palette, right-click reload, you can now see that it's been removed. So what it did is it looked back to the original drawing file, reloaded it to accurately display what the changes were. Now imagine the other person in the office, she's working on this. She notifies you, hey, there's been a change, I've saved it. You would go to the palette reload and you would get the most current version of whatever the work that person was working on. So I'm going to take the HVAC layer now, sorry, external reference, and I'm going to change it from being an attachment to an overlay. Okay, so you can now see that HVAC is identified as overlay. Doesn't look any different here though. So let me save the work I've done. Let me close the file. Thought I said save, but I guess not. Let me start a new drawing. And watch what happens if I go to attach my original Edition-A drawing. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking a drawing that has two external references attached, and I want to attach it to my current drawing. Picture an apartment building where you have one person working on Unit A, one person working on Unit B, C, D, E, and then all together they are bringing everything together to one drawing as external references. And then maybe there are going to be multiple buildings on a site. So you're going to bring in each building as its own external reference. So when I select Edition-A.dwg open, do zoom extents, there it is. So I want you to note what's missing. even though I had indicated that I wanted to bring in this Edition A external reference, I also wanted, that drawing had two external references of its own. One was electrical, which you can see, but I'm not seeing any HVAC. And that's what the difference is between an overlay and an attachment. An overlay only shows up in the current drawing it's externally referenced in, but it will not be nested into other external references. That's why we don't see the HVAC here. Whereas an attachment will show up in all subsequent attachments of the drawings. That's a little convoluted explanation. But if I were to go and open up the actual Edition A drawing and let me change the HVAC to attach, save. Boy, it doesn't like that save command up in the ribbon. Now, take a look in my bottom right of the screen here. It says a reference file has changed and need to be reloaded. So if I click reload, see? Now I can see my HVAC information. The HVAC information is there because we went back to the original Edition A file and changed the status of that particular external reference from being an overlay to being an attach. And that's the difference. And one of the primary reasons why this is important is because somebody could be working on the electrical, which would have maybe the floor plan externally referenced in, and then they want to, well, let's just say there's a potential there for circular referencing, something inserted into something else, then that something else is inserted into the current drawing. AutoCAD doesn't like that. So if that's going to be a situation that you need to concern yourself with, then it's definitely a point when you need to change that particular part of that external reference. And that is how external references work. The only thing I want to add to this is I'm going to close this drawing without saving it. Let me go back to the actual Edition A file. Sometimes you're going to need to email a drawing to somebody else. And if you just save the file Edition A and email it to that individual, then what will happen is the drawing file will go, but the referenced files will not be attached because you're not also selecting them to be emailed. We have a command called eTransmit. What eTransmit does is it will include any files that are currently referenced to the current file. What it will do is it will generate a zip file so that when you email the zip file, the recipient of that email will have all the associated files to that. The eTransmit command is found under the main menu for AutoCAD and under Publish eTransmit. So it warns you, just to be safe, the drawing hasn't saved, so you answer yes. Then it gives you the dialog box for creating an eTransmittal. And it shows everything, including external references, CTV files, ePlot, plotter configuration files, and you can also add additional files if you need to. So if you click OK, then it's going to save it as a zip file, hit save, and now you will have a zip file, and in that zip file you'll see all the files that are currently associated with a drawing Edition-A. And that is external referencing.